welcome to another edition of BoardCheck. I'm Jeremy the Impact York. Hope you guys still recognize me. We had some stuff come up last week. We were unfortunately not able to come on, but we're back this week and we're going to talk double the more important stuff. There are some fun things going on. There's some things that I'm going to go off about here in a little while. Some of them are Bruins related. Some of them aren't. Things I always think you guys need to know. Some fun things going on as well with us here. Who knows? You may see us at a couple Gladiator games here soon. We'll have more details on that the following in the week. Plus, we may have a guest next week too. I wanted to go on and get back in front of you guys and talk a little bit about some of the things going on. So let's just get right to it. Obviously, Boston has suddenly been kind of in a little bit of an upswing, and of course, they've been in an upswing because that's what you do in the NHL when you get rid of one coach and you promote the assistant coach. So Claude Julien was relieved of his duties, and they brought in Bruce Cassidy. I'm going to talk a little more about that in period number 2. But like I said, in the NHL, it seems like, Doug Waite comes aboard across the league. Other people, you fire your coach, you seem to win the next handful of games. Now, one of the things Bruce Cassidy has been doing is he's made it more high tempo, more high energy at the practices. Claude's more of a classic guy. Nothing wrong with either. I'll actually tell you where I think Claude's going to end up also in period number 2. Then obviously number 3 we'll address some Gladiator stuff and some other stuff as well. But, speaking on the Boston Bruins, they have a pretty interesting schedule coming up. And by interesting, I mean it's almost bizarre. The NHL has mandated this really, really weird thing this year called a bye week. This is hockey. There's if anybody has no days off, it's hockey. But whatever. What's going to basically happen is Boston is going to play at home versus Vancouver this Saturday night. Of course, that would be tomorrow night. And then actually it's going to be tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a 1 p.m. puck drop on that one. And then on Sunday, they're going to host the Montreal Canadiens still at home at 7:30 on Sunday. And then they're off for almost a 7-day calendar week. Literally no games. Just absolutely, after having 2 home games, I mean, it's really nice, especially with the coaching change and everything. They can really hit some fundamentals and regroup. But I'm still not sure why we have a bye week. It's just kind of bizarre. But, if anybody needs it, I think it's the Bruins. It'll allow everybody to catch up. So far, we have played 2 more games than almost everybody, including the New York Rangers, who we are 11 points behind for 7th place in the playoff race for the 2 wild cards. They have the 7th seed locked up. They're 11 points ahead at 71, and at 60 is where your Boston Bruins sit currently. That's 8th place, which is good. Problem is we are only 1 ahead of Philadelphia. We are 2 ahead of the suddenly surging New York Islanders. That's where Doug Waite is. And we're 4 behind the Yager Florida Panthers. So, gonna have to keep on the ball here and keep things going on. Some of the guys that are keeping this going, obviously Tuukka Rask, the only goalie that we have that not only can start consistently and way too consistently sometimes. We really need to get him a break, but we can't find a backup that can win a game. So maybe it's time to start doing some of these deadline trade deals. There's a handful of goalies I think we could pick up if you really want to dig deep. I believe there's a few down here in Atlanta for the Gladiators that are already in your system. You can just call them right on up, filter them into, you can go to Providence for a week or so and then bring them up. I think, I call him Dan Vladar, but Dan Vladar or Matt Ginn, I think, could be a solid backup behind Tuukka Rask and help with a playoff push. I would hate to see him go out of Atlanta, but I would be all empowered to see them on the next level. But Tuukka Rask and Brad Marchand, obviously the 2 All-Stars who factored into the All-Star game. Won't talk about Tuukka's day so much, but Brad Marchand, I believe, had an assist, and he played fantastic. He's such a small guy compared to some of these young, new, tall guys that, Marchand can get right up under him and snipe shots and set up things just as good as anybody. So congratulations on them for being the 2 All-Star representatives for our Boston Bruins and for playing as well as they are. Hopefully they enjoy this time off coming up. Now, obviously, you guys know the other big scores and the other big names, but I'm going to say them again. You got Pasternak, who actually has the same amount of goals as Marchand up to this point. You got Patrice Bergeron, who is always Mr. Consistency, always just that presence on the Boston Bruins. And then you got Krug, who has come out of nowhere and just been an assist machine But it's going to take more than 5 guys to hold them together. This is a great core. Zdeno Chara has been playing better. Maybe this high tempo is going to help a lot of people. We're just going to have to see exactly what's going to happen here. But on the other side of the break, for period number 2, we're going to dive a little bit into some NHL-related issues. I'm going to talk more about the Claude Julien firing. I don't really want to call it firing or canning. It was a mutual parting because nobody got mad at each other. Nothing. This was not Oakley in New York. This is nothing like that. Although, hey, Oakley can still go. If I'm security, I'll leave him alone. But that's another sport. That's another discussion. Even though Charles Oakley would have made a great defenseman. I'm just saying. I don't know if he could skate. Doesn't matter. Either way, I'm going to talk more about Bruce Cassidy taking over, talk another NHL issue, and in the third period we'll talk some Gladiators and some more NHL, and then we may be set for overtime. We'll have to see how it goes. Right here on BoardCheck. We'll see you after the break. And we're back for period number 2 right here on BoardCheck. Jeremy the Impact York, you guys already know that. Glad to be back. Some fun things have been going on, as we said. In the first period, we talked about the Boston Bruins, and, they let go of their coach. Now the assistant coach has stepped in. They're really trying to stay on for that wild card spot. That may be, honestly, their best shot at getting in the playoffs. This team is still a few pieces apart. We need a backup goalie who can actually win. It's just our defense sometimes gives them up, and our offense hasn't scored enough to keep people into it. I'll get more into, speaking of a team who does score quite a bit, I don't know if anybody can stop the Washington Capitals anyway. If they're the 1 seed and Boston is the 8 seed, probably 5 games and Boston's going to be sent packing. And I don't want that to happen, even though it's really nice that the Capitals are on the run they are. Ovechkin's really good, Backstrom. All these guys are fantastic, and Ashi, and I really like a lot of their players as well, but they're not Boston. We want Boston to win, right? So, can anybody stop them? Yeah, there's probably a couple that can. Sid the Kid's going to give it a shot. There's a chance Boston could if they actually, like I said, we got to address the backup goalie situation. We've got to be more consistent in scoring, but nobody's more consistent right now than the Capitals. I think in their last 10 games, they've scored either 5 or 6 goals. Literally, I mean, it's like 6, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 5, 5, 6. It's back and forth like that. They're averaging like 5.7 goals per game in the last 10 or 12 games. They're just absolutely on fire. And when you score 5 or 6 a night, it makes it really easy on your goalie. He can still give up 2, 3, 4 goals and still end up with a victory. So that's something we're going to have to address because, like I said, we're on a collision course for going straight at them. And that is not the team I want to see in the first round. Second round, sure. But I think this Boston team is good enough to make it to at least the second round. And then who knows, because kind of all bets are off at that point. You got to get past the surprise round. So, we're going to have to figure out how to not only make the playoffs, but then combat the Washington Capitals or the Pittsburgh Penguins. I believe one of those 2 teams is who we're going to end up facing. You never know, though, because the surge can go up or down in the next month and a half or so, and it could completely flip everything. Who knows? But moving on, I want to talk a little more about Claude Julien moving on from the Boston Bruins, or the Boston Bruins moving on from Claude Julien, however you want to see it. It wasn't an ugly breakup. Nobody's stuff was thrown out a window onto the front lawn. There's not any strange pictures on the internet now, no dumb rumors. No, Claude knew that at some point they needed to change things up, and it's a lot easier to let go of one guy than 30. So, he had to fall on the sword here. He did it gracefully. As far as where he could go, well, a lot of people say maybe Dallas if they get rid of Lindy Ruff. I like Lindy Ruff too. Not a lot of people I don't like in this league, honestly. But, if they move on from Lindy Ruff, maybe Claude goes there. I don't really think so. I think Claude Julien is going to be the first coach for the Las Vegas franchise out there. And, I think he's going to do well. To me, they did him a favor in getting rid of him now. And he's, he maxed out this team through his eyes, the way that he does things. He had maxed out the effort he could get from them in the way he coaches. So when Bruce Cassidy come in, he changes it up immediately. goes to a different format and tries to push them in a different direction to get them through that glass ceiling and maybe up to another. Let's see. Boston was looking for a spark like the Pens did last season. Remember, the Pens fired their coach in January, went on a ridiculous run, and hoisted another cup in what was one of the most amazing runs probably in NHL history. So, you're kind of looking for a spark, maybe this is the one. Like I said, he could go to Dallas, but I really like him going to Las Vegas. I've really been following Las Vegas and actually talking to some of their higher-ups here lately. So maybe we can get them on here soon to talk a little more about the Las Vegas franchise. But I really think Claude Julien is the top of the list there. And, we'll have to see. The problem is he would have to be pretty patient. If winning now is not a priority, then that could be a good spot because any expansion team usually takes a few years to get their feet moving and then a few more years to really build a contender. You never know. Could have an amazing draft. Could sign some great free agents. That typically helps. You really got to build that core fast. A lot of young players and a lot of aging veterans usually don't get the middle of the pack of those. So, as long as Las Vegas and Claude would be, in it for the long haul for at least 4 or 5 years or better, that they would want him around at least, that's probably a good spot he could go. Like I said, good luck to him, and we'll be following along here in the next couple months just to see what does happen and materialize there. Good luck to Bruce Cassidy now that he's took over. It's been a long time coming. He's finally able to take over a head coaching gig, and I think the Boston Bruins are as good a franchise as any. This would be one I would want to take over. As storied as they are, I think Cassidy could be the one to take them to that next level. And maybe he's going to talk to the front office about the moves he'd want to make, and maybe we can get those going. Get Cam Neely and everybody on board. Start making a couple moves here and there. Maybe some call-ups. Pay attention to the third period. Pay attention to the third period of this show. We'll talk to some Atlanta Gladiators, and we'll throw out some names that could definitely throw some sparks and really throw some weight around up on the pro level. I know a lot of people don't think the ECHL is that comparable, but you're pretty wrong on that one. But, also, the NHL, I gotta address this again here. The NHL needs more shakeups. And I don't mean something stupid, and I don't need, let's redraft all the teams. No, we're not 12. Let's not do that. But you got the melting ice situations because of facility issues and lower standards. They've said they may need to raise their standards. Well, that means your standards aren't where they should be. We should do that anyway. We should at least get them up to a certain level and stop being here, because we're the NHL. We're not the worst pro league out there by far. In fact, depending on who you ask or what category you're looking at, they're probably number 2 behind the NFL, behind football. Football's just the giant right now. And, hockey's a regionalized thing for the most part. It's hard to take on in places sometimes. That kind of thing happens. But you guys know that because no matter if you're in a city that works or not, you tune into the show, so you're a hockey fanatic. But we've got to do something about the melting ice and the bad facilities. The ones with financial problems or that are looking to get out. Here we are trying to add maybe the team in Las Vegas is coming. Maybe we're trying to add one in Portland or Seattle. And then you look at teams like Arizona and Carolina that are either looking for new places to play or either new places to play or potential investors or just outright sell them to somebody else. If I had the money, I'd take over Carolina because I think I could do a pretty good job up there of turning that franchise around and not only making them winners, but making them a substantial better profit than they are now. I think they have a lot of key things that they can really build on. Arizona the same way. Arena problems. You look at not only the Coyotes out in Arizona, which is still weird to call them that. They're the Phoenix Coyotes to me. It's just like they're the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. They're not anything else. They're the Mighty Ducks. That's what they always are. But you got to look at the Islanders too that are suddenly surging. In a couple years, the Barclays Center is going to kick them out, which is kind of interesting because I think, after 2 seasons, the Barclays Center can kick them out. After next season, they can opt out on their own. There's talk of possibly moving them to Quebec. because the Nordiques would love to fire back up. Who knows? I don't necessarily see that happening. I see Quebec getting a team on their own before you move somebody there. Plus, the Islanders are one of the older, storied franchises, so that would make no sense. But the Coyotes have got to figure out where they're going to play. Islanders got to figure out where they're going to play, and it's all a jumbled mess. So NHL, we got to do better. After the break, we're going to talk some Gladiators and a little bit more NHL right here on BoardCheck. And we're back for period number 3 right here on BoardCheck. Jeremy the Impact York, your hostess with the mostest. Shout out Michael Keaton. Now, period number 1, we talked about the Bruins, their upcoming schedule. We talked about a little bit about the Claude Julien moving on, Bruce Cassidy taking over. We talked a little bit about playoff position. Period number 2, in case you missed that, we talked a little more about the coaching change, and we talked about the NHL wanting to shake up some things. Now, period number 3, I want to talk some Atlanta Gladiators. But first, I want to talk about something that I'm surprised this is one of the first times that it has at least been talked about. This should have already happened, I think, in the NFL, but it seems to have happened in the NHL now. Now, Columbus has a forward named Josh Anderson. He's 22 years old, pretty good player, very, very good emerging player. He took a high hit the other night from Detroit defenseman Brendan Smith. No problem, it's hockey. People hit high, people hit low, people hit mid. It's hockey. It was a clean hit. The Columbus, being the road team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, had no travel physician. Most teams don't have a physician that travels with them everywhere. So the NHL rule is if you don't have a travel physician that the home team provides one, or theirs does double duty, which was kind of what was happening in Detroit. No problem there, right? I come to visit you, I get hurt, your doctor looks at me, no harm, no foul, right? Except for the Detroit doctor, after this hit, I guess they called down from the booth, and they said, remove him from the game, test him for a possible concussion. Once again, no harm, no foul, player safety. We're making sure Josh is okay. So they take him to a room, I would imagine the locker room. Take him to a room. They do all the testing. All the testing comes back good. But for precautionary reasons, the Detroit doctor says, yeah, he's not going back in. No, he's staying out. So you're like, okay. Now, the problem in this is, now Columbus is down a player, but player safety once again. No big problems there. The real problem, the next day, because this happened on Tuesday, on Wednesday, when the Columbus doctors, his own home doctors, gave him the precautionary test and checked on his condition, they said he showed not one sign of a concussion. Now, there's a chance he could have gotten over it that quick, but usually there's it's kind of like a scar tissue thing. You may not necessarily have the open wound there, but I can kind of tell you got hit at some point. But he showed no real signs of it. John Tortorella, one of my favorite coaches, and probably one of yours as well, says, he just says kind of his protocol. Some doctor pulls him out, and that was that. And it made it where he lost a pretty important player at that point. Now, I'm not saying that this happened. I'm just throwing this out here because I host a show where I can say things like this, and it's something you guys brought up as well. I'm sure you guys are going to get right behind this. Now, listen, like I said, the NFL is the other league that tests like this. I don't think any other. I know baseball doesn't. I'm pretty sure the NBA doesn't test for concussions in this sort of protocol thing. What is to stop a team like the Red Wings, who I have nothing against? What's to stop them from having their doctor pull out a player from the other team that takes a hit like that? Even if he's good to go back in, they can say it's precautionary, they can say it's player safety related, but they can inflate things a little bit and keep that player out in order to give themselves a competitive advantage. Now, do I think Detroit did this? No. Detroit is a pretty stand-up organization, and if they did do this, shame on them. But from everything I read, they didn't do this. But I'm just saying, at some point, I think there needs to be a third-party doctor involved, or you both need to have physicians, or we need to fix this, because it does kind of look like, even though, like I said, I do not believe this, it does look like that the Detroit Red Wings could have made sure that Josh Anderson didn't go back in the game in order to have the competitive advantage. I believe they ended up winning that game as well. Detroit did. So, like I said, I can see this happening in the NFL. Pull out a key player at the right time. Even if you pull him out for just a couple minutes, it could sway the whole game. The same thing in hockey. You pull out the right player, it takes a hit like this. I mean, it being Columbus, what if it was, one of their better players, one of their bigger, badder stars at that point? Or Detroit, what if it was the goalie? You look at, God forbid it was Bobrovsky that they pulled out. I mean, that could really wreak havoc on everything. The flow of the game, bringing the new guy, he's cold. I mean, all kinds of things can happen. So this is something, once again, I think this goes with the shakeups. This is something the NHL is going to have to, really buckle down and figure out a better way to do this. If that means you just require everybody to have their own travel physician, then I think you need to do that. If this means that you need a third-party guy at every arena that makes the call and not one of the teams, somebody affiliated with a team, I think you got to do one of these things. So I saw that pop up, and that's the first thing I thought of. And, like I said, I don't think any harm or any foul play was involved in this, but it turns out the player was okay completely. Probably could have went back in the game. So here's what it is. Columbus is still wreaking havoc on the rest of the league, so good luck Detroit trying to keep up with that. Now, I want to finish up talking about the Atlanta Gladiators. If I can get through this. I think I can get through this. I'm a tripper. Not quite as tough as these NHL guys, but doing my best. The Atlanta Gladiators currently sit 6th place in the South, 41 total points, behind the efforts of Neely, Nesbitt, Higgs, Buzzio, Atkinson. You guys know the big players. Roy Rorick doing a fantastic job of holding down the blue line. You got Matt Ginn, Dan Vladar, and the 4 or 5 other goalies we've had. It's kind of been a revolving door because of the shakeup up above. But I think, this team's pretty solid. They have the 41 points right now, which is pretty good. We're sitting slightly out of the playoffs, so we got to get a little bit of a push going there. But they have a pretty favorable schedule, in my opinion. This weekend, on Friday night, they will be in Florida to take on the Everblades. That is a 7:30 p.m. start if you're down in the Florida Everblade area. Of course, Saturday night, they play the same Everblades. That is a 7 p.m. start. And then on Valentine's Day, what a great thing to do. Travel up to South Carolina to the Stingrays Arena. On Tuesday, that's a 7:05 start there. Next weekend, they're in town Friday and Saturday night. You never know. That could be a BoardCheck night. That one of those two, maybe both. Maybe we figure out a way. But we'll let you guys know by next week's show, which will be on Wednesday. But we'll let you guys know. We'll let you guys know if we're going to make that one of those games or both those games. Would love to meet you guys. Met a lot of you guys last time. It was a lot of fun. Got to talk to some of the players, talk to a lot of you guys. We do this for you guys as much as we do it for ourselves, and we really do it for you guys even more. It's so much fun to get on here and talk each week about teams like the Bruins, teams like the Gladiators, the NHL, the ECHL, just hockey in general. Because if you watch this show, hockey is one of your favorite sports. Hopefully it's your favorite sport, and hopefully it's one of your favorite shows. But that's going to do it for us this week. I'm Jeremy the Impact York. We'll see you guys next week on BoardCheck.